Hey guys! Before I formally talk about Venture Brothers, I wanted to give a shout out to Johnny Michel, who's the reason this video exists. This was a commission via Patreon, and I really appreciate your support, so thank you so much. Anyways, it's interesting that Venture Brothers comes to my attention, because it has been brought to my attention a couple times in the past, and I do see why.
Buddy, what are you going on about?
Shh, don't call me that in front of the henchmen.
For those of you who don't know, but if you're watching this, I'm going to assume you at least have some familiarity with the show. These are my initial impressions, by the way. The episode I'm going to be mainly talking about is the first episode, Dia de los Dangerous. I hope I said that right. I'm going to be checking right now. Yep, Dia de los Dangerous. And Venture Brothers is essentially, it was initially conceived as a satire of these boy adventure space age shows of the 1960s. It's got a little bit of that 60s comic book aesthetic. I obviously love the aesthetic of the 1960s. I do really like the kitsch, the corniness, the chaos, the optimism, that hope for a better future, that interest in going forward and progressing. You know, Star Trek's like that. Scooby-Doo is very much exploratory. Something about the 60s, just corny, kitschy, optimistic, hope for the future. That's all stuff I like, and bright colors. But there was also a lot of chaos. There was also a lot of people advocating for their rights. It was an interesting time in American history for many reasons. This is definitely a spoof of that. It's got an old school aesthetic. The animation style of Venture Brothers, it has an old school aesthetic. It definitely has that 60s, 70s look, but in a way that it's not dated. It definitely has a good combination of the old and the new. I was actually surprised that this came out in 2003. I thought it was a lot newer. I heard it got canceled as of recently, but I'm impressed. It was running a very long time. That's honestly really cool. I watched the first episode, and I actually watched the second episode. This is my initial thoughts on this show. When I watched the first episode, I thought, this feels like internet animation. It was reminding me a lot, even though it had an old school throwback, it was also reminding me a lot of stuff you'd see on Albino Black Sheep or Newgrounds. Tiny Plaid Ninjas especially came to mind. And Charlie the Unicorn. Funny thing is, there was actually a joke used in here that was also used in Charlie the Unicorn. It's the stealing the kidneys joke.
Oh, what happened? Oh, they took my freaking kidney.
Ow.
Oh, for the love of... not again.
Which I didn't realize, is that a trope? I don't know, but funny thing is, this actually did it first. I don't really want to say Charlie the Unicorn ripped it off. Maybe they just came up with the ideas at the same time. Very possible. So you got the two main characters, Hank and Dean Venture, who are spoofs of the Hardy Boys. They're so stupid, but they're so well-meaning.
Double, damn it! Hank, you said the double D word.
They're so likable. They're very entertaining characters. I like that, you know, maybe they'll disagree on something, but for the most part, they're on the same page and they want to do the right thing. They're a ton of fun. You got their curmudgeonly father, Dr. Venture. He's great. His archenemy, who's more into this than he is.
Come on, I'm sure the walls of the Venture compound are practically caked with the lingering curses of the monarch's name.
No?
The monarch was honestly my favorite part of the episode. I probably should talk about this. My thoughts, like the show, are gonna be all over the place. Yeah, and I will get to that. I get a couple of comparisons, and you'll see this in the interview I did with JP vs. the World, who, fun fact, interviewed the composer of this show, JG Thirlwell. Definitely check that out. some comparisons from Venture Brothers to my show, Katarina the Supervillain, and I totally see it. There are a lot of differences. They're totally different stories, different themes, but there is overlap in terms of tone and humor and maybe a little bit of some of the old school ideas, some of the cynicism, but also mostly the tone and humor and a little bit of the angst. But ultimately, they are very, very different. It just shows, hey, we can all be inspired from similar things and like similar things, but take very different things away from them and still have a very different point of view and come to very different conclusions about similar subjects and similar things that we're inspired by. Reading up on Venture Brothers, their big theme is failure, which is interesting. I wasn't really getting much of a story, much of a plot from what I saw. But again, these are just my initial impressions. It's a long-running show, and you obviously can't summarize several seasons in just a few minutes. But my initial thoughts are that it doesn't really... I wasn't getting big themes in this. I was feeling more that they were a bunch of just disjointed thoughts. The stories didn't feel... I mean, there is a general plot, but there's still... It feels more like the characters just going through their lives, things happening in this very weird world. There's a sense of adventure. It's a weird world, and you're trying to figure it out as you go. I think my favorite part of the episode was when Hank and Dean are kidnapped by the Monarch, who eventually feels bad that Dr. Venture didn't come after them. He says, that's so sad. Oh, and then he essentially tries to adopt them, which is so strange, and so loving. It's so strangely heartfelt. Is he the real villain in all this? I don't know. Then they have a bodyguard, Brock Sampson, who is voiced by Patrick Warburton, who I absolutely love. He's a great voice actor. I love watching him in pretty much anything. Even if I'm not into the show, I usually like his performance, if not always. Yeah, it's definitely fun. I tend to like a little more coherence in stories, and this has an internet animation feel to it. Something in how the story's constructed and even how it moves. The animation, I wouldn't say... It does move a little awkwardly, but at the same time, there is a charm to it. It's definitely more sophisticated than a lot of the stuff you'd see, obviously. Again, you can't really compare... And I'm not slamming internet animation by any means. I mean, look at what I'm doing. But things are obviously going to be different on a network versus just having fun on YouTube. And that's not even a bad thing. There are just similarities in tone, humor, style. So it's interesting to see how that fully plays out in a full 22 minutes. There is a sense of fun to this show. Some of the jokes did get a laugh out of me. Funny thing is, for me, I generally don't usually get into Adult Swim shows, but I did appreciate this. I did. I really did appreciate this. I got a few laughs at. Yeah, it's fun. I like the color work. I like the animation. I like the old school style to it. There's a weirdness that's a ton of fun. There is a little bit of blood in this because there's a scene where Dr. Venture, after having his kidney stolen, he ends up using a robot, the Helper, as his mechanical kidneys. There is blood. I'm not against blood. I can handle it fine, but I'm a little sick of seeing it. It's just because I see it in almost every adult animated show. But hey, people can do what they want. I tend to like more the Looney Tunes style violence or AmazzonKane's violence. I don't like a ton of gore. This is definitely not nearly as bad as some other things I've seen. But it's charming. So far, I definitely like the Sons. The Sons are very funny, and I also like the Monarch. They're my favorites so far. I find them very entertaining. There is a lot of heart to this, which I really do like. I like the passion. I like the weirdness. Even if I don't completely get into this disjointed style of storytelling, I do still appreciate these characters. I still feel like, oh yeah, you know what? That's fun. That's interesting. I still appreciate the 60s throwbacks. I still appreciate all the effort and hard work that went into it. It feels like it's coming from a good place. It's Adventure Brothers. It's cool. It's cool. It's likable. It's weird. It's internet-y. Internet-esque. And it's a long-running show, so clearly it was doing a lot right.